Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Toilets and Titles. My name is Justin Stevens. I'm back at you with another special bonus episode. This one is a little bit different. We're going to do a card break. Our fantasy football site on Facebook is called When a Family Breaks, after all. Um, on that end, that's something that John started as one of his many passion projects, where he buys and sells cards and memorabilia and that sort of thing. So I thought I would play off of that a little bit. So if you're watching on Facebook, we're about to do a very special card break, something a little different. For the rest of our viewers, if you are in the Frankenstein Listeners League, you'll probably really enjoy this episode. All right, so here we go. All right, here's my package that I got in the mail, and I'm hiding my address because of some of you crazies out there. All right, here we go. All right, and I know Joe Knows goes live in about 13 minutes, so we're gonna make this quick. But look at this beautiful custom-made tin, this metal tin, Toilets and Titles logo on the face and everything. So let's see what kind of special cards we have in this special card break. Wouldn't you know it? I got some monster cards. All right, monster cards. And I've got two of these tins, one for me and one for John. And we have a few decks. Now, I have not opened these yet, so it looks like I need to sort through some stuff here real quick before I didn't want I wanted them to be open. All these are beautiful. These are so awesome. I wanted this to be as much of a surprise for you guys as it was for me. So I haven't really looked at these yet, but we're gonna pull these one at a time and go over real quick the rules. Joe, if I go a little bit over, I apologize, my man. But I'm gonna try it out here. So the first card that we have up is the Dracula card. It is called Vlad Dracula. And this is what it looks like. That's our Vlad Dracula playing card right there. Let's see if there's any shine on it. Okay, the Vlad Dracula card. And on the back side, it has the rules. And I know you probably can't see that from here, but this card, keep in mind, this is for the Frankenstein Listeners League. So we have very special rules with these player cards. So with these player cards, you can they all have a special bonus or a special power that comes along with them. For this one, for the Vlad Dracula card, you can steal 20% of a player at the same positions points to remove from that player's score for the week and add it to your player's score for the week. That needs to be played Tuesday by noon. Okay, so that tells me it has to be played Tuesday by noon. That's for the previous week. Okay, you play it. What you're going to do? It's like Dracula sucking the blood out of its victim. You're sucking 20% of a player's positional points from them and giving it to one of your players' points after the week was already played, which means that could be the difference in a win or a loss right there, guys. So the next card we have up is of course, we're going monster theme here. Don't forget, Pennywise Clown is the next monster card here. That's beautiful. Those of you that have a fear of clowns, that's a nice close-up shot of him right there. So the Pennywise Clown card, you know, Pennywise could always change his shape and his form, right? So this card, a player on your roster can become any player at the same or at the position you play this card for that week. It cannot be a player that's on your opponent's roster. So, in other words, let's say your running backs are weak are kind of weak this week, and you want Jonathan Taylor to be on your team. If the other guy isn't starting Jonathan Taylor and you don't have Jonathan already, all you got to do is say, "Hey, this scrub that I'm throwing out here this week, he's actually Jonathan Taylor." This card needs to be played prior to the Thursday night football game, which means that you have to play it leading into the game. Now that player, let's say Rex Burkhead that you threw in there, he's going to get Jonathan Taylor's points for that week. That doesn't affect the other team in the league that has Jonathan Taylor, but it does help rack up your points for that week against your opponent for that week. The next card we have is the Blob. It's actually called Jelly Blob because when we inputted these into my fantasy league, you had to have a first and a last name. We made all of these guys rookie quarterbacks. So this rookie quarterback, Jelly Blob, is right here, and there is the back of it that shows the rules in case you're interested. There we go. Let's see. So the Jelly Blob card, you get to steal a player from your opponent's roster, your opponent's roster starting lineup, or the bench. So it doesn't matter, a bench or starting lineup, without having to give a player back in return at all. So this has to be played by Tuesday at noon Eastern. So Tuesday at noon Eastern. So that means you're playing this after the previous week's games, and you do not get penalized at all for this. So if you won the previous week, you already get to steal a player because this is a vampire style league. You get to steal a player from your opponent and give him back a weaker opponent in your starting lineup at the same position. But then you also can use the Blob to steal another player. Or if you lose and you have a player stolen, you can now use the Blob card to steal that player back or another player without giving someone up. So this is also a full card as well. The next card is the Silver Bullet. And I know this one is kind of a personal favorite of John's. And I am not seeing it. Where is it at? They better not have shorted me a card here. Oh, there it is. All right. So the Silver Bullet card. Silver Bullet obviously is a homage to the werewolf. There's the back of the card. God, these things are amazing. All right. The Silver Bullet card. If you lose this week, you cannot have a player stolen from your roster. It needs to be a player prior to Thursday night football. So you have to choose this player ahead of time. That's why I think this one may not be quite as powerful, because you use this card and you choose to say, hey, I'm going to protect, let's say Jonathan Taylor again. I'm going to protect Jonathan Taylor this week. He cannot be stolen. Well, then what happens if you win? You just wasted the card. So you got to kind of pick and choose. You're probably really only going to be able to play this card whenever you know you're going to lose. Or when you're pretty confident that you're going to lose. The next card is the Frankenstein card. We call it Victor Frankenstein because Victor was his first name. And this one's also extra special because you see on the front here, our man Sheps is Dr. Frankenstein on this one. So that's a nice, beautiful touch from our man, Andrew Campy, at Andrew Campy. He designed all of these cards, guys. All I did was put in the order to place the order to get them. Andrew designed every one of these. This dude is amazingly talented, so we appreciate your efforts. On the back of the Dr. Frankenstein card, you'll see yours truly as Frankenstein himself. Victor Frankenstein card. So pretty much means that Coach created me, I guess, which isn't too far off. All right, you get to take a player from your opponent's starting lineup, but you're only taking his score, not the player. You're taking that player's score for the week and giving him back the score of a player from the same position from your starting lineup. This needs to be played Tuesday by noon. So this is another one that you get to play after the week's games are done, and you get to swap out one of your starter points for one of his starter points at the same position. So pretty powerful card. Again, that could be the difference between a win or a loss. All right, after the Dr. Frankenstein card is the Mummy. Mummy Imhotep. I don't know Imhotep. I just looked for what the mummy's name was in the movies when I came up with that, Imhotep or something like that. But anyway, there's the Mummy card. The Mummy card. The power for the Mummy card is your opponent must start the same lineup he started last week. The only exception is that if he had a player stolen from his starting lineup, or he gave up a player, or he gave a player for his starting lineup. Whether the player he swapped out from the previous week from the win-loss. That's really the only thing that he gets to swap out. You must play this card by Tuesday, noon Eastern. So this one, though, you have to play it Tuesday for the next week. So you're playing it way ahead because this might affect your opponent's waivers acquisitions. So he needs to know ahead of time, hey, the players that you just started last week, you have to start them again this week, so you can't drop them. All right, so that makes that card extra powerful too, as long as you play it on the right week. All right, the Terminator. Next is the Terminator. And the name that I came up with for the Terminator card actually is Cyberdyne Terminator. So that will make a lot of sense to those of you that enjoyed that movie. When you play this card, you get to go back in time because that's what the Terminator did. And you get to make one adjustment to your starting lineup after the week's games have ended. How many times have you been playing fantasy football and you realize, oh, crap, I started the wrong guy? And you wish you could go back and make that change. So this is your opportunity. You get to use this monster card to do that. It needs to be played Tuesday by noon, which means you're playing it for the previous week's games. Next is the next card up is the Invisible Man. So the Invisible Man card right there. The Invisible Man. The power for the Invisible Man is that you can block a player from being taken from your starting lineup. You have to designate the player before the start of the week's matchups. It needs to be played prior to Thursday Night Football. So in other words, what you're saying is just in case you lose, you're going to protect one player. So it's kind of like that silver bullet. Oh wait, no. Yeah, it's kind of like the silver bullet in a way. He's in your starting lineup and you're saying ahead of time, I'm protecting Jonathan Taylor. You cannot steal him. Let's see. The Ghostbusters Slimer card, or it's called Slimer Ghostbuster. This is my absolute favorite card. This was my 101 in the draft. I had this card listed before any other player at any other level because this is such a powerful card. And it's already played out very well for me in week one because the week one opponent has already told me he does not want to play his card against me because I have this card. This card will block your opponent from using their monster card. They still lose their monster card as if they had used it. This would also mean that I would lose mine as well, but I have up to 12 hours after your opponent plays their card to be able to play mine. Now, if we play the timeout just right on that, I mean, depending on when that other card is played, that is super powerful because I have up to 12 hours to play it. So I really love that card. It's like using the card every single week because you're playing defense every single week with it. All right, next is the Leprechaun card. Here is the Leprechaun card. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get super deep into this because we got Joe Knows coming up in just a few moments. But the Leprechaun card essentially is a game of luck every single week. Or not every single week, but the week that you play this card on our show on Tuesday nights, our normal, typical Toilets of Titles, the main show that plays on Tuesday nights, we are going to spin a wheel. And on that wheel is going to have a list of 10 very fortunate and lucky things for your team and 10 very fortunate and lucky things against your team. Some of those are for or against your opponent for the previous week, the next week, overall season, that sort of stuff. Like, for instance, one thing on the wheel says that you're going to lose 50 points for this upcoming game. So you have to play this Tuesday by noon so that we can have time to set up the wheel for the show when we spin it live on the show. So if you get that wedge, you're going to lose 50 points for the next upcoming week. And then there's one where you spin it and it says your opponent gets immunity from having a player stolen this week. So if you beat them, you can't steal anybody. But also there's one that says that you get to add 100 points to your total season score, which is huge because a lot of our playoff spots are based on total points for. So there's just several different things out there, bonus-wise, that this card can do. All right. Next is Fly Brundle. The Fly Brundle. And I named it Fly Brundle because the Fly, the guy in the Fly, his character, his last name was Brundle, so it made sense. Okay, when you play this card, you pick a player from your roster to have all of his points from receptions or receiving increased by 20% this week. It needs to be played prior to Thursday night football. So if you play this card and you choose Cooper Cup, then every single point he gets from points from receptions, first downs on receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, anything he gets receiving wise, those points get added. You get to add 20% of those points to your total score for that week. And finally, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde card right there. And what I like about this card is that little dude right there kind of reminds me of our boy Rich Gonzalez of Toilets and Titles. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he's got, because I've seen other old pictures of Rich, so when he has that mustache, it's hilarious. All right, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde card. All right. The bonus for this card, after the week's games have been played, you get to swap out a player from your opponent's starting lineup with a player from his bench. This needs to be played by Tuesday at noon. So again, this is for the previous week. After it's played, you get to swap out one of his bench players for one of his starters. So it's kind of like the opposite of the Terminator. Instead of helping your team like the Terminator does, this one hurts your opponent. All of these cards could be the difference between a win and a loss, with the exception of the Ghostbuster card, which actually is kind of the difference between a win and a loss every week, as I keep arguing. All right. So I thank you very much for your time, guys. This show is going to be posted. We have it on YouTube and Facebook and Spotify, or not Spotify, none of the audio ones. But anyhow, I'm going to get the show out there. I'm going to share it to the Frankenstein Listeners League, specifically mostly for you guys, because I thought some of you might appreciate this fun little episode. So, Joe, I apologize. I'm a few minutes over. I'm going to get off here, and I'm going to pull up your show and watch live, buddy. Appreciate you. Thank you guys for enlightening me here.